Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to RISMedia's Agent Webinar Series. We've got a phenomenal topic, and we have great guests with us here today. And I'm excited to share with you this unbelievable content. My name is Verl Workman. I'm the founder and CEO of Workman Success Systems, one of the premier coaching companies in the country, helping agents become elite. And I've been asked to be the host for the webinar series, and I'm excited to be here and really honored to have our distinguished guests today. I want to encourage all of you as you come on, just a couple of things. First of all, make sure you stay to the end. At the end of every one of these webinars, we always ask our presenters if they will give you content, ideas, systems, processes that will help you with their business. And on this webinar, our guests have been very, very gracious and have offered a lot of systems that they'll be sharing with you at the end of the webinar today. I'll be sharing with you exactly how to download those for those free gifts. Just a little bit of housekeeping before I introduce Cleve and Dave Chamberlain is during the call, if you have questions, I want you to just simply type on the questions tab on your control panel and write your question. If you type those questions in, I will look for natural places during the presentation to have a pause, and I'll do my best to ask all your questions. If for some reason we can't get to all your questions, please type them in anyway, and then we'll strategically go back, send you emails, and post them on our blog. The conference call will be recorded, and you will have access to the recording following the call today. And so without further ado, thank you all for being here. Welcome to another fantastic webinar put on by RISMedia, one of the best content providers of services and content for the entire real estate industry. And we're grateful to RISMedia for all the effort that they put together and the resources they put forth to put these great webinars on. So today I've got with us Cleve and Dave Chamberlain. I'm going to first introduce Cleve to you. Cleve is currently the managing partner and broker of Gaddis Partners and RE/MAX Center just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. He's been there for more than 10 years, closing over $40 million in sales volume annually. If you do the math on that, you realize that this is a seven-figure income earner that has a great team. He's got over 25 years experience in sales management, training, and coaching, and he's really regarded for his expertise and his willingness to invest in the success of others. And that's what I love about Cleve, is he's really focused on making a difference in the lives of the people that he serves, and oftentimes those are his agents and his team. He's also an experienced real estate investor and a property manager. Cleve's got a very unique perspective on real estate, sales, and marketing. He's an in-demand speaker throughout the United States in areas of investing, sales, and marketing. He also hosts a Cleve Atlanta Real Estate Show, which is on one of Atlanta's top stations. It's 640 WGST. He's frequently quoted in local and national media, and he regularly speaks to trade associations and other professional groups. When I first met Cleve, it was many, many years ago when he hired me as the coach, and we became friends and have done other businesses throughout the years, and it's been interesting to watch him grow. But one of the things that, that we really resonated together is when we talked about our previous lives. Cleve comes from a sales management position with the Electrolux Corporation. That's right, he was selling vacuums, the door-to-door vacuum guy. And you got to respect the guy who's not afraid to get out there and knock on doors. And he was ultimately responsible for 86 branch offices with over 1,000 staff and sales associates in the Midwest United States, operating a huge budget in, close to $40 million. He's got great sales background. He's a good guy. He's an awesome motivator. He's a true closer and amazing coach. It's been fun to listen to Cleve's coaching students as they begin to achieve great success with the proven systems and processes that he helps them strategically not only think about, but come to the realization that they must do in order to have success. Cleve's one of our executive coaches at Workman Success Systems, primarily working with brokers and owners in large teams. He's got a bachelor's degree in management and international marketing, and graduated from Northwood University in Chicago. He's just a good guy, a smart guy, and a fun businessman, and he really makes a great difference in the lives of the agents he serves. So, Cleve, welcome to the call today.
Hey, my pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, Cleve, we're talking about systems today and really creating great systems in your business and what makes a difference. And let's just begin by talking about why we have systems, what systems you share with the team, and why it makes a difference.
But really, Verl, you have to have a system for everything you do when you're running a team. You can't have just a system for a listing presentation or a system for this or that. You've really got to have systems for everything so that you can continue to duplicate those systems with the new people you bring in or new administrative staffing. And so we have systems for lead generation, for conversion, for our listing presentations, buyer presentations, for how we work a buyer through the process, for how we prepare for closing, to how the closing package looks when somebody goes to closing. We have a system literally for everything. Everything.
Talk to me about transparency.
Several years back, I was reading a book, and I don't even remember what it was. It might have been The Dysfunctions of a Team or something like that. And they were talking about how you needed to share information about what your team was accomplishing with all of the members of the team. And I have to be honest with you, when I first read that, it really, it was not a comfortable feeling, because I had the thought process that if I shared the amount of revenue that was coming into the business, that the people in the business would assume I was making too much and they were making too little. And it really sort of scared me. And so we started out taking baby steps and just sharing the number of listing presentations and the appointments we'd go on and the conversion numbers and things like that. But eventually we started sharing everything, including the total gross commission for this month, this week, the last year, the year before. And it's really been amazing to see what happens when everybody on the team is working toward a common goal. It's been fascinating for me to see what I thought was going to be a big negative has turned out to be really, in my opinion, the most positive thing we have done. Is we've set the goals at the beginning of the year. Here's what we want to do as a team. Here's the amount of money. Here's the amount of gross commission income we want to generate. In order to do that, here's the activities that need to take place. And then every week we bite off that one little 1/52nd chunk of the year, and we talk about how we're performing based on where we should be and based on last year. It's amazing to see what's happened.
That's cool. So tell me a little bit about your team. Kind of describe what your team looks like.
So me as a team leader, we have 3 administrative people helping us on the listing and closing side, and then we have 5 team agents, 1 who helps me with listings and 4 who concentrate for the most part on working with buyers.
Awesome. And what's your average sales price in the market you're in?
The market average last year was about $240. Our average was about $280.
I like that your average is a little bit higher than the market. So how many units will you sell this year? What is your team goal?
200. We'll sell 200.
200. That's not a bad year.
Yeah.
So what level do you track? Kind of take this, when you shared this with me, you showed me some of the things you track. This is a pretty intense spreadsheet. Kind of take me through this. What do you track? What do the points look like, and what do you measure and why?
So, Verl, if you want to, that's a good example of what our spreadsheet looks like. We're not sharing that spreadsheet with the people on the call today just because it's a little too detail-oriented. I thought it might be confusing. But go to the next slide, if you will. So these are the things that we're tracking from a listing standpoint. And so and all this is based on the prior year and our plan for the current year. So, for example, we know that we have to go on this year a total of 208 listing appointments for the year. And if you don't need to go back to the prior slide, but you'd actually see that number in the upper left-hand corner. Everything is sort of driven around how do we achieve those numbers. So on a weekly basis, we're tracking the number of listing appointments. We're tracking the listing previews. We started a couple of years ago not just looking at the listing appointment number, but counting a preview where we might go visit a FSBO or expired where we really can't get into a listing presentation. But the goal is to get face-to-face with that prospect so that we can work them into a listing presentation at some point in time. We're going to also track the number of listings that we get, the number of listings that go under contract, the number of listings we close, and we're going to track the listings sold, dollar volume, the gross commission income, and again, everything this year versus our plan and this year versus last year so we can see exactly where we are. So, if we're 10% of the way through the year, Verl, and we're 20% behind on our goal of listing appointments, then we've got to up our number of listing appointments by a certain amount every single week for the next couple of months to get back to even.
And how have you done that in the past where you find yourself, it's the end of the first quarter and you're behind by 20 appointments? How do you turn it up so you can make that up in the next quarter, or do you just adjust your goal down?
That's what you can adjust. Well, I mean, Verl, there have been times when the numbers, we set goals and the goals didn't make any sense, meaning we couldn't convert as high a percentage as we thought, and sometimes you do have to adjust goals. But generally, you know, if I was 12 listing appointments behind, then every week for the next 12 weeks we would want to go on one more listing appointment with a goal to say, hey, within 3 months we will be caught up to the goal. You know, most people, what I have seen is that most real estate entrepreneurs, they don't really totally understand all of the numbers. So they don't understand if I do this many activities, this is my conversion. This is a percentage. If I go on this many listing appointments, this is how many I'll list. If I list this many, this is how many I'll sell. And the issue is then they get frustrated because they're not listing enough houses, but they don't really need to get frustrated about that. They need to get frustrated because they're not going on enough listing appointments. Because if you have enough listing appointments, you'll have enough listings. If you have enough listings, you'll have enough closings, period.
Love it. And so you track all of that in your contact manager as well as a spreadsheet?
We do all that in a spreadsheet. We track too much for a top producer to be able to keep up with it, so we use a Google Docs spreadsheet, and we take the buyer's agent's information where they're tracking the people they meet with face-to-face and what's happening on those appointments, and then we sort of bring it all up and put it on one master spreadsheet that we've been keeping up with now for the last 4 years, and it is amazing to be able to see the business, in terms of number of appointments and the listings we've gotten and the closings we've gotten, to see the business taking fairly good leaps forward every year. It's really cool to see that. It makes you feel good. It makes you feel like it's all worthwhile.
And also, when you start tracking things at this level, Cleve, one of the things I've noticed, you tell me if this is true, is it puts a reality to your goals. You can actually see what it's going to take to hit a goal, and it's just a matter of duplicating or increasing the activities. So there's no number that's really out of reach. You just have to have the systems in place to be able to have the face-to-face appointments, buyer presentations, in order to hit that number. We just duplicate our process. It kind of takes the guesswork out of real estate.
That's right, and it really gives the goals legs. So for years, we'd set goals at the beginning of the year, and then we talk about those same goals at the beginning of the next year. That was it, and we would always miss them. Now we're talking about them every week, and so everybody on the team gets motivated by those particular goals. And so when we thought at the end of last year, we were never going to hit our commission earning goal, but because we kept talking about it, not only did we hit it, we exceeded it, and it sort of gets a life of its own that I don't have to drive every day. Everybody else understands exactly how they fit into the puzzle and what they're supposed to be producing in order to make it work. It's really cool.
So on the buy side, you say you track, you break it down to weekly. Go through your matrix here.
So that we're tracking the total number of incoming buyer leads, sign calls, Zillow, all the different methods of lead generation. We're tracking those total incoming calls, the face-to-face appointments. And here we have a different step in the process where you might meet with a buyer, but you don't have a chance to do a full buyer presentation or a buyer consultation with them. But we still want people to understand there's value meeting with somebody new face-to-face. So we'll track the presentations, the agreements, the ones they put under contracts, the solds, the conversions. So every agent knows all year long what percentage of their appointments they're converting, and we want them to convert and close on about 25% of the total appointments they have. We track the dollar volume, the gross commission income, and then everything versus our plan in last year.
Awesome. So talk about lead sources for just a minute. When you do that kind of volume, everybody wants to know where you get your leads. And a lot of people feel like, they just don't have enough leads. I know that you put this in here because it's not always the lead, it's how we follow up and convert the leads. So first talk about lead sources, then talk about how you follow up and convert.
So we generate a lot of leads through Zillow. We use a kind of a tiger lead system called Money Tree. We're also signing up a couple of new services, generate leads for years and years through Realty Track. We've got a great IVR call capture system that we're using. We get a lot of sign calls. We do a lot to make sure that we get a lot of traffic on our own GoGaddis website so that we're producing a certain amount of leads through that. So our goal is to produce 2,600 incoming buyer inquiries from all different sources in 2015. And if we do that, we can hit our buyer sales plan.
That's a beautiful thing. Lead generation is not the issue, is it?
Well, you can generate all the leads you want if you don't have some accountability, and we could convert more of our leads. We know that we take 16%, right now it's almost 18% of all incoming buyer leads, and we turn them into a face-to-face opportunity for one of our agents to meet with a client. That's huge in the real estate business, but it could be higher.
So take us through how we follow up with leads in the system.
And this is a real simple system we use, and this is part of the Workman Success systems that we teach coaching clients. but we teach everybody to categorize buyers into three different categories, either A, B, or C. An A buyer is somebody that is ready to sell or buy immediately and that we have an appointment with. And that is the key to this program, is that if you don't have a future appointment, Verl, scheduled with that buyer, they are not an A-level prospect. They are a B. And so the key is for those agents to try to keep the prospect as A's. A lot of us have agents that set people up on drip campaigns and set them up on an automated search system through the MLS where they're getting listings that match their criteria, and our buyer's agents never once even look at that list to encourage a buyer to go see a house. They wait for the buyer to contact them. Well, when the agent does not have an appointment with the buyer, that buyer becomes a B, and the only way to get them back to an A is to set an appointment. So you watch how your agents will start to comb through those MLS hot sheets and stuff to find listings that buyers should be going to see, because really the buyer's agent should be driving that process, and so often, Verl, we let the buyer drive the process. So the B lead, somebody's ready to buy in the next 30 to 90 days, and you should contact them twice a month on the week of the 1st and the 15th. And then a C lead, and notice there's not a place for a dead lead. So if a person says they're not going to buy, or they're going to buy from somebody else, they're still a C lead because they're going to buy another house 6 or 7 years from now. And you're still supposed to follow up with them once a month on the week of the 8th. Certainly over time, that list could get so overwhelming that they might not be able to follow up with everybody, but it makes everybody look at a lead as some value sometime in the future instead of saying, well, they're not going to buy in the next 2 weeks, so I won't worry about them. And Verl, the other things there to the right, and we don't necessarily have to talk about those today unless you want, those are scripts that if you have, and I think we might have these as a free giveaway, Verl, you'll have to confirm that, but so if a buyer's agent's working on your team, they don't know what to say when they're making those follow-up phone calls. It gives them some good ideas of things to get conversations started with B and C clients.
Yeah, having scripts and dialogues. How important are using scripts in your business? Do your agents use scripts? Do you practice your scripts?
They do, and we probably, Verl, do not practice scripts as much as we need to. We've taken a lot of that lead generation and conversion out of the hands of our agents, and so we have what we call client care specialists that do that. And everything they do is very systematic. If a lead comes in this way, here's what we call, here's what we do, here's what we say, here's the follow-up they get, here's how often, and then we're using Top Producer to make all of that work for us. So if they're supposed to be followed up with every 3rd day, that's what's going to happen.
Awesome. So when you talk about your client care specialist, is that kind of like an ISA? A lot of people call that
an inside sales associate, exactly. And the reason mine are called client care specialists is because I started it 3 or 4 years ago, really before people were talking a whole lot about inside sales associates. And what happened was, Verl, is I would sit around in 2009 and 10 and feel sorry for myself because I couldn't generate as much business as I wanted to. And it finally dawned on me one night driving home is that, look, my issue is that I'm not generating and converting enough leads. I'm not active enough in new client acquisition. And so I said the only way to solve that problem for me, I've been in the direct sales business for so long, Verl, I don't want to make follow-up phone calls. I knocked on doors. I made phone calls for years and years, and I've done enough of it. I'm not saying that other people shouldn't do it, because at a certain time in your career is what you should do. But I decided to hire somebody to handle that process for me. The first 2 people, they were a lot of fun to deal with. They were total flops. It was never going to work. It was horrible. The 3rd person I got, she is fantastic. She cares about each and every buyer lead that comes in. She spends the time talking to them. She's not a polished salesperson, but one buyer care specialist, one buyer client care specialist who probably makes $45,000, $50,000 a year, generated about $380,000 in gross commission income last year. It's huge.
That is huge. That's a critical hire.
It is.
For the people that don't believe they can afford a person like that, how do you justify it?
Well, Verl, the problem when you think about whether or not you can afford somebody, first of all, the base pay they're getting is very small. These are licensed people, so they're getting a commission when a sale closes. But I used to look at, how can I hire somebody for the next year? How can I hire somebody for the next year and a half? But you don't really need to do that. You need to say, how can I afford to hire somebody for the next 30 days? And what can I do to try to make this thing work? And I'll tell you, Verl, for the first 4 to 6 months, it was not a huge smashing success. I was probably spending half or 3/4 of the income that I generated. But once it started to catch its stride, it was really amazing. So ultimately, we don't want to spend on our share of the commission income any more than about 25% of the income they generate on that person and all of their marketing expenses.
And so you've got a buyer client care specialist. Do you do anything for the listing side?
I do. So if you go to the next slide, I have a seller client care specialist, and it's really the same thing, except that is more proactive. We're starting to use some of the new things like prime seller leads. We certainly have Red X, and we do FSBOs and expireds, but we do a lot of direct mail. We mail probably 30,000 pieces a year out, and for the most part, for the last couple of years, it's been we have a buyer. You know, we have so many buyers who want to find properties, and we can't find properties for them. So if we can match up a neighborhood, we mail into that neighborhood because it's perfect. Number one, we might find something that works for our buyer, but more importantly, it's going to put me, face-to-face with sellers who need to sell their house. And maybe it's now, maybe it's 6 months from now. Maybe we can match them up, maybe we can't. But it's another person we've met with face-to-face that we can start to generate some business. On the seller side of the business, we spend up to about 30% of the total revenue that is generated. But this person, for example, is responsible for producing for me 2.85 listing appointments a week. I know you can't do 2.85, but that's what it averages out over the year. And that is her goal. And every week she's trying to get me face-to-face with listing opportunities for 2 to 3 people. And it's huge. She generated probably about $200,000 in gross commission income last year. On the buyer side, it was $375, but a percentage of that is going to my buyer's agent. On the seller side, I'm doing the bulk of the listing presentation, so the bulk of that gross commission income stays with me and with the team.
It's brilliant. A lot of people don't want to prospect, and they don't want to do it, and they don't like to do it anymore. And this is a great way to hire someone that does the prospecting, calls the FSBOs, expires, works your CRM. I love it, and she's paying for herself many times over, it sounds like.
And the nice thing is, Verl, is that now we can take those systems and we can duplicate them. We can take those systems and I can go into other geographic areas and try to recreate the system as I want to expand the team, which is the next thing we'd like to do, try to branch out just a little bit, and hopefully we can make it work.
That's awesome. A lot of people are asking me about selling, right? It's about listing. Talk to me about your home selling system and what you do that's unique and how you actually win when you get into the listing.
So, and just so you know, we only list 60% of the listing appointments we go on. I talk to people all the time. I list 80, I list 90, and I say, yeah, you'd lie about other things too if that's the case. That just means you're not going on enough appointments because you can't find 100 people in a year who are going to sell quickly enough for you to list them all anyway. Some will sell 6 months from now, a year from now, something like that. So we list 60%. And what I really wanted to do, Verl, was to create some exclusivity around the programs that we offer, even though what we're doing are generally kind of the same things that other people are doing. I mean, we can't invent all new ways to sell real estate. But I decided that, number one, I wanted to clearly define the system. So here's the 71 steps that we walk a buyer through from the time they start looking for a house until they close. The buyer doesn't have to do any of it. The agent's got to do all of it, the administrative staff. And then we also have a 71-step process on the listing side. It's all stuff that we're doing. And then we name the system. So we go on a listing presentation. We offer a system that is exclusive to us, meaning we own it. We're the only people in the country that use it. And we call it the Sure Home Selling System on the seller side and the Sure Home Buying System on the buying side. And it was really created, Verl, for one reason and one reason only, is that's because I couldn't get the buyer's agents to say the right things to the buyers to convince them that they could be of more value to them than anybody else they would work with. Well, once we created the Sure Home Buying System, and we have about a 4-inch 3-ring binder, and a lot of those buyer's agents will take that binder with them on the appointment, and they'll say to the buyers, my job is to make sure you can be sure about all the decisions you make because I'm going to ensure you're the best educated party in the transactions. My guys could say that in their sleep. They put that binder and they say, you don't have to do a single thing on here. I'm going to do all these steps for you, and I want to make sure you go into that closing with your eyes wide open. I don't want you to learn anything after closing that you should have learned before. And it's amazing how that messaging resonates with buyers, and we're giving them something that's different than other people in the market are saying to them.
So everybody has a system, right? They have their 21 points, their 17 steps, right? What I'm hearing is...
Yeah, all we did was take our system and give it a name. That's all I'm talking about. So you have your system. First of all, you might want a system to be a little bit bigger. You might want to add a few things to it, but you need to name it. You need to give it something you can call it. So everybody has these same systems that they do. It's just they say, hey, we've got a 21-point process. Well, why don't we call it the Cleve Super Duper blah, blah, whatever? Because then everybody's saying the same thing.
I think it's brilliant. A quick question there's actually several questions I've asked them as we've gone along. Clarify just a little bit about the salary on your client care specialist. 40% base, 60% commission. What do you mean by that?
So they're getting $1,400 a month, whether we generated any business from them or not. And generally, they're getting about 10% of the net company revenue. So on the buy, we take out for the agent. We pay 10% of the net company revenue. The same thing on the sales side of the business. Generally, they're each making about $50,000 a year. About 40% of that is base pay, and the rest of it is commission and bonuses.
So 60% based on the production and what they can control.
Correct. Because you can't, if you make it, a lot of people, they want to hire somebody like that, but they don't want to pay them anything. You've got to have some skin in the game. It may or may not work, but you've got to have some skin in the game to help them get it started. The problem is if you put somebody on that program, Verl, and they're not right for it, they're not paying for themselves, and you've got to either make changes with them or you've got to get rid of them and put somebody else in the spot.
So let me ask you a question. You know, Cleve, you clearly have a successful business. You've done great over the years. So why do you coach other people? Why do you accept coaching clients? Why have you decided it's something you'd like to do?
Well, first of all, I love your systems and your programs because they can be customized for pretty much any personality type, any style. The satisfaction, and you know this, Verl. I mean, I call you like a 8-year-old kid that's excited about a new toy they've gotten after having a coaching call where you finally start to get that breakthrough and somebody starts to change the way they're thinking, and then I realized that the way they're thinking, now that it's changed, is going to change everything in their business for the next 10 or 15 years. And maybe that wouldn't have been important to me, Verl, 5 years or 10 years from now, but today it is just, I don't know how to describe it. It is so, because we're giving somebody the tools to know how to think about their own business and to step back from it and put things in place that they can use to grow the business over time. 2 years ago, if I put something in place in my business, Verl, it needed to work tomorrow. There is nothing good in business that'll give you income long term that'll happen tomorrow. It is planning for 6 months from now and doing it today. That'll make you some money. And it's just cool.
I love that. Great systems, great process. I love the Sure Home selling system and giving it a name and the process. I'm sure we have more questions for you, but I want to make sure we get to Dave and give him an opportunity to talk as well. So, Cleve, thank you very much. Stay with me as we get to the end. I'll see if we have more questions for you. Is that okay? Everybody, please welcome Dave Chamberlain. Dave and his wife Linda own the Team Chamberlain Realty Executives in Orange County, California. Dave started clear back in 1981 with Century 21, where he quickly rose to one of the top, actually the number 7 ranking in the entire system. They purchased Century 21 Advantage, and they grew it to one of the top offices in the country while continuing to increase their own personal sales. You know, when I first met Dave, we were talking about some of the joys and his passion about real estate. He says, my favorite transaction was selling a Surfside home in a neighborhood in Surfside to Cameron Diaz, which I thought was pretty cool. And for time as well as for financial consideration, Dave focuses 95% of his time on personal sales. I want you to think about that. He runs a team, but he spends 95% of his time on personal sales. He's a big believer in programs, presentations, checklists, and systems, and has spent his career customizing scripts and prospecting. It was interesting when Dave was in Salt Lake and we were going through some of our coach training stuff. Almost every problem, Dave came up with a solution to it. He would say, well, they just need to prospect. And that was a solution to almost every problem any business or any agent would have. We said, well, we just got to prospect better, and we have to prospect more. We have to call the right people and say the right things. And I love that his attitude is so heavily focused on doing the right things. Dave's a high producer. He's built true wealth, not just in selling other people's real estate, but also in investing and holding real estate throughout his career. He has a passion for teaching other people. He's also one of our coaches at Workman Success Systems. And Dave, thank you so much for taking time out of your crazy schedule to be here. And I look forward to what you're sharing with us today.
Oh, my pleasure. In fact, I'm still taking notes on Cleve's presentation. Wow, what a wealth of information.
You know, one of the things that I love is how much we learn from each other. Every one of these calls, I go back and listen to it again, and I take content from it. And it doesn't matter who the guest is. I learned something on every one of the calls, so I'm with you on that. Talk to me about what it means to commit to success systems.
Okay, well, I think to get to the next level, if we're talking about taking people from one level to the next, you really need to develop some consistency in your systems. And I just talked to a coaching student in Texas, Melissa, who said, gosh, I haven't had time for the last 2 or 3 months to do any marketing. And it just tells you, and she's selling about $8 million a year, doing fantastic, wants to take it up to 12, 16 million, and she'll do it. but she has no system designed that automatically gets her marketing material out. So you've got to develop systems so you don't have to depend on yourself for stopping during the week or at the end of the month to develop the next week's or month's marketing. I plan all mine years ahead of time. It's typically some of the same marketing materials that I've used that have worked in the past. I tweak maybe 2 or 3 of them a year, and I try to give something of value every time I do some marketing. But I think it's the most important thing is no matter what it is, if you're not getting, in geographical farming that is, if you're not getting a couple pieces of literature out a month, if not 3 or 4 with just listeds and just solds, then you keep having to reinvent the wheel, and you keep having situations which Melissa's in where there's kind of a little slump. You know, start and go, start and go.
So, Dave, tell me a little bit about your business currently.
Okay, well, we market to homes, like I've got one in escrow for $180,000 and own your own in Long Beach, and I wrote an offer for a little over $4 million in Newport Coast. But the primary business that we do, I would say, is in the $500,000 to $1 million homes. And at this point, we're getting probably on an average 3 to 4 pieces out a month to keep our faces and our names in front of those particular geographical groups.
And what does your team look like?
Right now, it's my brother, his wife, my wife, and we've got a few of our kids with licenses that are going to school and helping us when they can. We have a transaction coordinator, escrow officer. So that's basically the team, and we've created systems for everything. You know, I always say that a professional airline pilot doesn't start a flight without a checklist. But a lot of times when you give a checklist to somebody, it's like, well, I don't need a checklist. But they wouldn't use them unless it was important, and I think that's really what agents need to develop with a marketing program, a checklist, make sure that everything's getting done throughout the year. With prospecting, same thing, another checklist. And I think what we heard from excuse me, Cleve, he's got every system, every script, everything you could possibly need. He's much more detail-oriented than I, and he tracks things much better than I. I'm on the front end trying to get the business, putting it together, and not really counting it much or looking back at it. But the information he gave would be you know, invaluable. So.
Let's talk about the 4 pillars of your success.
Okay. Basically, when we talk about the 4 pillars, marketing's number 1. If we don't do any marketing, we're not going to get seen, and of course, we're not going to get any business. So I keep that first and foremost. When it comes to prospecting, back in the day, I was knocking on doors when Cleve was selling vacuum cleaners door to door. So that's certainly propelled my career. I started in the early 80s when probably 80% of the people got out of the business, so it was probably a little easier then to make a name than it is now. But I think especially if you're in your first 3, 4, 5 years, whether it's calling, making phone calls, knocking on doors, or any type of prospecting, it's just important. And when I was doing training back in the 80s, I would tell my agents that even if you blow 7 or 8 hours a day, don't blow the prospecting. Make sure at least an hour or 2 gets done every day, and you'll get the results. So that would be the prospecting. And then on to training, a real integral part. It kind of makes everything else work. If you're doing the marketing and you're doing the prospecting, but you don't have a clearly defined goal with appointments like listing appointments, buyer appointments, etc. If you don't have a process, then you really don't even have the confidence to go on that listing appointment. So I think it's really important to spend a half hour, an hour every day training. I used to spend an hour a day while I was on my bike listening to Tommy Hopkins or Verl Workman or those guys, and there's just a wealth of great talent out there to train. And then it's important to customize some of that training for your personal market and for your personal resources. So moving on.
I love that. I love that you're listening to Tommy Hopkins. He's what made me want to be a motivational speaker. I went to a success rally when I was in high school, Dave, and I saw Zig Ziglar and Tom Hopkins and Dr. Schuler, and I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do, and I couldn't find a career path for it. So like you, I listened to those tapes and I listened to those CDs, and they kind of put it into my DNA, and you just think differently after you've spent 30 minutes or an hour listening to others help you with your mindset and sales strategy and things like that. So I love that you still do that. Do you have a favorite?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very inspiring from an all-around sales standpoint. Have to be the late Zig Ziglar. He was the greatest. And then for real estate, I mean, there's a lot of good trainers out there. Tommy Hopkins, Mike Ferry. I remember a guy named Alan Dalton. I don't know if he's still around, but had some very good verbiage and maybe appealed a little more to thought than the usual sales approach.
You know, I love all those, and I really like Alan Dalton, but I have to have a thesaurus with me when he speaks so that I can understand. He's got quite a vocabulary.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to translate a few of his words.
Talk to me about presentations as one of your pillars of success. Is that, you mean delivering them or crafting them, or what do you mean by that?
Well, both crafting and delivering them. When I started out, I was actually a relatively shy person, wasn't an extrovert, so I spent 30 days literally practicing presentations because I didn't want to look like an idiot when I got in front of my first seller. And my whole thrust was to list properties. I was going to law school at the time and didn't really have time to show buyers. So I spent a lot of time figuring out every objection that I thought a client might have, and I would answer the objection in the presentation. I'd say something like, gosh, we haven't talked about commissions yet, but I think that's probably one of the most important things to talk about. And it brings me back, I mean, that's obviously one of the biggest issues all us agents have, but I just remember a trainer I had back then, a national trainer, and he would describe presenting a seller's net sheet to a seller at a listing presentation. And they emphasize the title, the escrow, and then they kind of like whiz by the commission and muffle the commission as though the seller's not going to notice that $24,000 fee. So, you know, things like being able to handle that with confidence so your sellers know, hey, this guy talks about commission, that's important to us, and you hit the other 6 or 8 major objections through the presentation. So 90% of the time at the end of the presentation, there's nothing left to do but fill out the paperwork.
I love that, and I think I'm a true subscriber to the fact that most objections can be handled during the presentation. If you really think through reasons people don't make a decision to go with you, and you can eliminate those during the presentation, you end up with a lot more signatures on the bottom line. A lot of interest and a lot of questions come up when you mentioned you send a lot of pieces out, and you talked about geographic farming. Talk to me about your, first of all, the philosophy, the size of your farm. Let's kind of go through what you do from a geographic farming perspective as part of your prospecting, because I know you do this really well.
Okay. Well, I started out with 169 homes when I started. I grew it to about 250 homes. And right now, because I was the broker and I had a lot of partners in the 80s, as they disappeared, I took over those areas. But I would not recommend more than 500, 600, 700 homes for anybody that's been in the business less than 4 or 5 years. I mean, we see some mega producers that are mailing out 30 and 40,000. Right now, I have 17,000, and they get things through the mail, and most of those areas are paying off pretty well, even if I never really specialized in them. But I think the key is to get good response from the area you're in before you move on. So I would say 5, maybe 200 to 300 to start with if you're brand new at the most, for maybe 6 months, a year and a half, and then branch out. Try to do it in an area where when you're holding an open house or doing anything, everybody from the adjoining neighborhoods is going to see you.
And you do 2 mailers a month? I've heard 1 a month or 1 every other a month. Have you tested this? And tell me the kind of result you get.
Well, to be honest with you, when I started, we did 4 a month. Actually, we did more than 4 a month. I had my agents put something on the doors pretty much every single weekend. And, you know, I know a lot of agents will initially say, wow, you know, that's offensive, that's this, that's that. And, you know, if you had 500 homeowners and 1 or 2 said, wow, you're kind of overdoing it, you know, those are the 1 or 2 that are going to call you when they want to list their house in 2, 4, 6, 8 years. So nowadays, most people are just doing it through the mail, so there's no real issues with that. other than expense. But we were actually doing four a month and just listed and just sold. I think it's really important when you list a property to get that information out to the neighborhood that you're servicing, as well as if it happens to be in a different neighborhood, 100 or 2 homes in that neighborhood. Same thing with just solds.
So you picked farms based on other people getting out of the business. Do you do any kind of research to determine, who you want to farm? Do you look at any numbers?
Well, when I was picking agents to partner with, I definitely would. But basically the areas that I started were all contiguous to what I had. It wasn't like I went to a different, 10 miles away. It was actually adjoining neighborhoods, so they could constantly see when we were out there. I mean, sometimes we would have 4 or 5 homes open. And I think back in the day we were dominating maybe 60 to 80% of the market was my team.
Take me through some of these marketing pieces that you send out, and these are some things that Dave's making available at the end of the call, so I'll tell you how to get those, but kind of take us through each of the pieces and how they work for you.
Okay, well, the first one, early on in the game, I decided I wanted to give something of value to the homeowners. So when they saw me, it wasn't just another request for business. So I have the first one you see is Happy Thanksgiving, and a little saying there that pumpkin pies can make the difference on Thanksgiving, and Team Chamberlain can make the difference when it's time to buy or sell. So there's a little real estate message in there, but the bottom line, we'll send those out to everybody. Now we have them email them back in as well as mail them. Some of the old timers are still dropping them by the office or putting the stamp on them, but we'll have typically 400 or 500 responses from that, and we just happen to usually buy 400 or 500 pies, so almost all of them seem to win, and they get a kick out of that. Kind of a fun event.
It's a great touch.
Yeah, next one is a full color market activity. That would cover everything we do as a team. So all those are listings or sales, typically listings that have sold or new listings. That's the top left. And we'll send that out every month. Actually, we do that through the mail and through a newspaper. So it goes
to all 17,000?
Yeah, it'll actually hit them twice in the month, one at the doorstep and one through the mail.
Okay.
So next to that, pumpkins. That's a really, really easy event that has a lot of visibility in a neighborhood. Throw a pumpkin patch together at a neighboring park or school, get their permission. Throw a bounce house up if you can, and we used to have games for the kids to play, kind of like a carnival type thing. But it's a cheap event. You buy a couple hundred pumpkins. If you have 500 or 600, or maybe you buy about 10 or 15% of your farm, because typically if you get 10 or 15%, that's a big turnout. But that's several hundred people that you're going to make a personal contact with, and they're going to associate you with doing something, giving something back to the community. So that's a good event. See, the next one, Sorrento Market Update, is just a small area. It's about 600-700 homes that we service, and that would be the same to all the other areas. I know there's a lot of agents that are mega producers that are sending their literature to entire cities when there's maybe 50 or 60 different subdivisions. My thoughts are that the people that live in the Sorrentos are more interested in what's selling in their neighborhood. So that's a list of everything that's sold in their neighborhood in the last several months, whether it be my sales or competitors. So that gives them a good grasp of what things are selling for. And it also associates me with keeping up on the market. So another chance for them to call the phone number at the bottom of the piece there once a month.
So on that Sorrento Market Update, how many different small communities do you do that? It seems like it might be a lot of sorting and heavy lifting there for the team.
Well, good point. There's probably about 12 of them that I'm doing right now. There's areas or builders that actually have homes in 8 or 10 different locations. So I use the same one for, say, the Greenbrooks, which is a builder. So maybe 12 or so of those. But we've got it dialed in through the multiple listing service and through the realist tax to get all the information monthly. And I don't do it, obviously, or it wouldn't get done. but one of our support staff makes sure it gets done for each of the neighborhoods. And I would say probably doesn't take more than an hour to get the information. And then he actually does the graphics. It's my beautiful son, Clint. He does the graphics on the different areas. So he has a little bit of awareness of all the areas as well.
And then the last one you have is the Chamberlain sleigh.
Yes, right. Boy, it's a double-edged sword. It takes up my December, but it's been an amazing event, and still at listing appointments today. You know, people have, wow, you know, when their 16-year-old kid was 2, they show me pictures on the fireplace mantle of a picture they took on the sleigh. So it's pretty awesome. We do something that's very labor-intensive. We actually have the sleigh on a trailer, and we're on the trailer. We get Santa Claus in the trailer. We're standing on the trailer, and we drive through the communities giving out candy canes and free pictures. Or they come up with their cameras. They don't have them. I'll take them and on my phone and text it to them. But when you think about 17,000 homes, it's just enormous. But for a normal mega agent, 500, 600 homes shouldn't take more than 3 or 4 hours, half a day on a Saturday or Sunday, the early part of December. So it's been a great promotion, and people talk about it all the time.
So how big are these pieces? Are these 8.5 by 11s? Are they postcard size, big jumbo cards? What are the sizes you're mailing?
Great question. These are all 8.5 by 11s. The full color top left is actually a little larger than that. It's printed by the LA Times actually, and they're the ones that send it out. So, but everything else 8.5 by 11. And I don't necessarily recommend that. We just haven't got into the postcards. I think postcards are fantastic. I guess one of my thoughts is if they see one of these and a few postcards from others, it stands out maybe a little more, but I think postcards are good.
Awesome. So talk to me about prospecting. So I love the farming stuff. I love that you're doing it consistently. I think it's a little bit unique that you're talking about doing two mailers a month, where most talk about doing one. Is there any question in your mind, or when you look at your bottom line, that they pay for themselves?
Oh, no question at all. It's the return is hundreds of times the cost.
Not just 5 or 6 times, hundreds of times.
Hundreds of times, absolutely. And that may vary in like Cleve's neighborhood. If the average sales price is $200,000 or $300,000, ours maybe 6 or 7. So you know that becomes an issue when you talk about cost in different areas. But I still think it's a fairly negligible cost for the expenses. Looking at the organization as a whole, or the team.
All right, take us through 61 points.
Okay, well. When I started out, it was 21 points, of course, because it was a Century 21 system. Now it's 61 points, but these are obviously a list of the type of prospecting that you can do, or things to generate points. So if you look through that, and I think you'll have it available for people afterwards, it has to do with making calls, emails, writing notes to people, all the things we can do to get our face or our name in front of a potential client. So.
Yeah, it's really great. This is really designed for prospecting activities, right? It's 61 points doing things that are money-making activities each day, and if the agents commit to doing and getting their 61 points, and they do that every single day, they'll never ever worry about where the next dollar is going to come from, because they've built the pipeline, and they continue to keep that pipeline filled by doing those success habits every day.
Yeah, it's really ironic because you know, I think you coined the term fake work to me. So first time I've heard it, but I think most of us agents spend several hours a day doing what we think is work, knowing we should be doing something else. And a point system like this really keeps you on track. You know, if you find yourself that you've wasted 2 or 3 hours, you know, get back into it, get the point system, look at that. As basic as it is, that's the reason that most agents aren't significantly successful.
Let's talk about really becoming the master. I love the 61 points. We use it with all of our clients. It's critical, and I think it's important that you eliminate the fake work from your life. So many of us spend the day, you know, with a feeling of busyness that doesn't actually help us accomplish anything, that moves us closer to our goals, and that's really what that's designed for. And I appreciate you bringing that up as part of the success systems. Talk to me about truly training. You mentioned this a little bit earlier, but let's spend another minute on this.
Okay, well, I'm surprised you threw the stationary bike in there, but the fact is, for probably the first 15 years in real estate, I'd come from an athletic background, and I didn't want to let that go. So I found that if I could jump on a stationary bike, one of the kinds that sits down, put a desk in front of me, I could play a few training tapes while I'm doing that. So I pretty much did that for probably maybe 12, 15 years, and I felt like I wasn't wasting any time. And I was obviously a captive audience to the training. So it doesn't really matter what you do in the car, wherever you get 15 minutes here, 20 minutes there. But I think your whole aura as an agent is affected by your training. And I'm sure, you know, the typical response would, hey, when I get the listing appointment, I'll learn how to list a property. But then you'll never get the appointment because you know you're not ready for it, and psychologically it's just not going to happen. So I think you need to commit to dialing in your presentations. There's only so many people, so many questions that a client could ask, and it's so easy to have 4 or 5 different responses for each question or objection. And we've talked about different training sources that are available for all of that.
So every presentation has a natural flow. Is this something you've developed over the years?
Yeah, I think I spent that first month before I got into the business just kind of dialing everything in, and then I've added to it and customized it for the change in times, etc. But I think it's really important to take an attitude similar to a teacher or a professor to educate people. You're the expert on real estate. Let them know exactly what they can expect. Let them know that you're aware of what other people have said and objections, and handle those while you're in the process, like about commission and pricing and I want to think about it, and all those different objections. But take an educational approach rather than what I call the blue suede shoe sales approach. And I think they'll feel like they're an important client rather than a customer.
I think that's huge. A couple of questions that are coming from the audience. One is Doug wants to know, is it the knowledge you get by listening to the tapes, or is it the application of the knowledge?
You know what, that's a great question, and probably more than anything, it's actually the confidence that you get from the training that affects the way you present, the way that you perform when you're there, but both those reasons as well. But I think probably the biggest benefit is just the confidence that you have. And people are going to see when you come in that you're prepared to market their home right then and there, and that you're the right guy for it.
So one last question to you, and then I'm going to open up a couple of questions to both of you. Dave, in your career in real estate, you've I don't know the best way to say it is you've become your own best client, and you've built some significant wealth by actually being by investing in real estate. How important is that for real estate agents to understand the opportunities we have by being in this business and how it affects your future?
Oh, well, I think it's fantastic. Back when I started, and I still think it holds true today to a certain extent, but it seemed like 95% of the extremely wealthy people in America did it on a portfolio of real estate. And I'm sure there was, a few percent that businesses, et cetera. But I think by and large, if they had extreme wealth, it wasn't just a retirement program. There was real estate involved. It paces itself with inflation. You can leverage it with 20% down, so you get 5 times the return. If values go up 5-6% a year like they do around here, or even 2% in some areas, over 10-20 years, it's huge. And you're in the business. I think, somehow it might be a little embarrassing if you're working with people and they say, do you own a house? No, I rent. That wouldn't work out too well. And likewise, I don't think, realtors that are building a business and are wanting to take it to the next level, they need a retirement program. And to me, the only retirement program I knew was real estate. Buy a piece every year or two. Originally, I put 15-year loans on them, and I was more interested. I started when I was 22, so I didn't really have a big overhead or a family or anything to worry about. But I think the first 9 homes that we bought were rentals. Bought a little condo for my wife and I, and then bought 9 or 10 rentals. And I think my wife informed me that the next house I'd be living in, so we bought a nice house. But definitely we We believe in real estate, and it's provided a great tax shelter, which a lot of you agents may know about, but you should check into that. The depreciation write-off against your ordinary income is huge. Sometimes you can make a few $100,000 and not pay a dime because you have the depreciation from the real estate. So a lot of big reasons, but main one is to build yourself a nice retirement program.
And I appreciate that. And maybe we'll have to see what the interest level is from the audience, but I think that may be a great topic for another call, is to just talk about how do we as agents take advantage of the opportunities that we see. I don't know how many times I've said to a client, you should really buy that. It really seems like a good investment, and they didn't buy it, and neither did I. And I go back and I think of all my career in real estate and how many times I could kick myself for not pulling the trigger and taking my own advice, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, several of the first properties we bought had to do with a contingent transaction that might have been 3 or 4 deep that I was handling, maybe 5 to 6 of the clients, and the first one fell out, and I said, gosh, it wasn't like I got a particularly great deal, but putting that one together maybe got me 60 or 80 grand and got me another rental property. So they show up.
It's a beautiful thing. I'm going to just put a couple of slides up that shows people how they can get the downloads from today's session. If you go to workmansuccess.com, and you'll see it'll take you right to today's webinar. We're going to give you the ABC lead management system, the Gaddis outline of the Sure home buying system. Dave has shared with us his marketing systems and processes of what he does in his geographic farming that gives him hundreds of times the return on his investment, which I love. And we've launched a brand new program called Buyer Agent Mastery, and we're going to share with all of you one of the sessions out of the Buyer Agent Mastery program, and it's a full coaching session that is available to all of our teams that we coach, and we make it available to you as well. You can watch the session on us taking you through the A, B, and C as lead follow-up and how we actually do it, and we encourage you to download that. For both of you, a couple of quick questions. Cleve, for you, do you make any money with social media? How has social media played an impact on your lead generation systems and conversion?
Well, we're starting to use a lead capture system that's actually is worked through Facebook. We've been doing that a month or two, and we're really impressed with the number of leads that are generated through that. I am active on Twitter and Facebook and everything else. I have somebody else that helps with a lot of those blogs and blog posts. To be honest with you, we probably don't do nearly as much as we could and should in terms of social media.
Okay, I appreciate that. Dave, have your team taken much of a social media approach?
The extent of the social media approach, to be honest, is, I love all those little symbols on my material, so I make sure we're part of them. But I have a high-tech high school student named Andrew who handles the social media for us. So I'm not great at it, but I recognize the need for it. So we have we have the sites, and they're linked with our literature. My view is, they're going to be more and more useful as time progresses.
What about just flat-out internet marketing? Cleve, you talked a little bit about some of the lead marketing or the lead generation systems you use. Maybe expand on that just for a quick minute.
Well, we do have a blog lister portion of our website, so it's taking listings in certain market areas, just automatically posting blogs for those listings. We're trying to get out there ahead of Zillow and everybody else, and we'll get in and change the wording on some of those listings so that Google thinks it's a unique piece of information. So we're doing that, and then I host a radio show here in Atlanta, and so we're always constantly changing the radio broadcast and things like that. So just getting in and working the site and making changes all the time. Our goal is to produce 3 or 4 times as many leads through our website this year as we have in the past, and I will tell you that even just going in and doing the little things that we're doing is having a big impact on the number of leads we generate from it.
I think that's interesting. So many agents have gone to high-volume lead generation systems, and they're spending. I've seen clients spend as much as $7,000–8,000 a month to do lead generation, and they don't spend enough time promoting and doing the things to drive business to their own site. And you've made that a pretty conscientious effort in the last year or two.
Yeah, we're not as good at it as we want to be, but it's something we definitely, and that's what got me to it. Is I'm thinking, man, I'm spending all this money generating leads, and we can justify the expense. But what if I could generate the same number of leads, and have somebody spending $1,000 a month worth of their time optimizing the website? So that's what we're experimenting with.
Are either of you using video?
not like I should. It's something I'd really like to add to the business.
Yeah, we do video virtual tours and have like little videos on the properties that we list and a little video link in our listings, but nothing other than that.
Well, I mean, that's not nothing, Dave. That's a lot, actually. I think that most homes are eliminated by consumers because of the poor visual experience they get on the Internet. And by adding video to it and great virtual tours, it separates you from 95% of the other agents who do drive-by shoots with their iPhones.
Right.
That's true. And we do some video tours of our listings. One of the things that I think is sort of the future is probably putting together these little snippets of the different things that a buyer might see during the transaction, and sending out a video. I'd love to set up something where when a buyer inquiry comes in, instead of them getting an email, they get an email that might have a video from me that sort of introduces them to the prospect, to the process that we have. I think there's lots of ways to use videos that we could certainly do in the future. Lots.
Yeah, and more people are incorporating that. Guys, we're out of time. I want you to know how much I appreciate you being here today and sharing your success secrets and your systems for not only building a great business but serving others who work with you on your teams and your families. And thanks for being part of the givers who share with the RISMedia audience in this phenomenal agent webinar series. I want to thank you once again for being here. Thanks for your enthusiasm. If any of you have clients that are moving to California or they're moving to Atlanta, Georgia, Cleve, tell us how we can send you an email with a referral.
Easy. It's Cleve, C-L-E-V-E, at GOGADDIS, GOGADDIS.com. Or you just go type Cleve Gaddis in Google. I'm probably the only one in the United States.
I love that one. And Dave, if we want to, it does help being a Verl. I can relate to that. Dave with the normal name. What part of California do you serve? And anyone with referrals that'd like to send them to you, where do we send them?
Basically Orange and LA County, and the best email would be dave@teamchamberlain.com. Love to have them.
Well, thanks again for being here, guys. Have a phenomenal rest of 2015. We'll talk to you all on the next RISMedia's Agent Webinar Series. If you need help with your business and you want to get to where these phenomenal agents are, sign up for a free business consult, and we'd be happy to talk to you on how we can help you take your business to the next level. Thanks again for being here, and we'll talk, and goodbye, everybody.